This is the regular meeting for the City of Morgantown Board of Zoning Appeals. Please turn off all cell phones or other devices that may disrupt these proceedings. It's the duty of this board to consider requests for relief from the requirements of the city's zoning regulations, to consider conditional use permit requests, and to hear administrative appeals. The board conducts business in the following order: review, amend, and approve minutes of a previous meeting. We will then move to unfinished business, conduct new business, and conclude with announcements from staff. Each request is heard in the order that it appears on the agenda. For each conditional use and variance request, the following is done. We'll introduce the agenda item, and the planning division will present a staff report which may or may not offer a recommendation. The applicant agent will then be asked to present their justification for their request, which may include questions by members of the board. I will then open a public hearing to hear testimony in support of or in opposition to the request. Rules regarding public testimony are as follows. Anyone wishing to testify during the public hearing may do so once recognized by me, or may, in lieu of oral testimony, submit written testimony to the chair. All recognized speakers must approach the podium, state their name and address for the record, and speak clearly into the microphone. All comments must be addressed to the board, should be relevant to the application, and may not be of a personal nature or personal attacks. All speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the speaker, that time will not be counted toward his/her 5 minutes. If there's a large number of speakers, including many who are part of groups or organizations, I may, to avoid repetitive comments, elect to ask for a representative to speak on behalf of the group or organization. Speakers are notified that irrelevant comments or comments of a personal nature or personal attacks may result in the speaker forfeiting his/her opportunity to participate in the public hearing. I may elect to recognize the applicant agent at the end of the public hearing to offer rebuttal or additional comments, which will be limited to an additional 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the applicant agent, that time will not be counted toward the 5 minutes. After all testimony is heard, I will declare the public hearing closed, and no further public comment will be permitted. Uncivil, unruly, and or disruptive behavior at any time during this meeting is prohibited and will result in removal from this public meeting. State law requires the board to consider findings of fact for each conditional use and variance request. The request cannot be granted unless a majority of the quorum present finds in the positive of all of the findings of fact. The board may elect to continue the hearing to another date if it needs additional information. Applicants and requesting parties will be notified in writing by the planning division of the board's findings and conclusions. Regardless of whether a request is approved or denied, decisions of this board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Monongalia County within 30 days upon receipt of the written notification from planning. Any work done relating to decisions rendered by this board during this 30-day period is done at the applicant's sole financial risk. Thank you for your consideration and respect for these proceedings and the opinions of all meeting participants. So let's take roll. Ms. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Plyler?
Here.
Mr. Benison, present. For the record, we do have a quorum. Let's see, we need to consider meeting minutes from the last, actually, that was a special meeting. Did you have a chance to review? I looked at the meeting minutes. They looked all right from November 6th. So I move that we accept the meeting minutes from the special meeting November 6th, 2024. Those in favor? Oh, we need a second. That's right. And we have a second from Mr. Plyer. All those in favor to accept
Aye.
the meeting minutes into the record? Aye. Duly accepted. So we're going to move to no old business to address. Move to new business. The first case is VR 24-163 Brewston Farm Service Companies, 15 Brookhaven Road. Request by Maura Miller on behalf of Brewston Farm Service Companies for variance relief from Article 1369 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code regarding wall, pylon, and menu board signage in the city tax district 14, 6th ward, tax map 45, parcels 5.2, 6, and 7, and 7.4 in the B2 Service Business District. Mr. Yeager?
Mr. President, thank you very much. So the applicant seeks to install new wall signage, directional signage, menu board signage, as well as a new pylon sign for the new gas station mini mart that's being constructed at 15 Brookhaven Road. Elevation drawings of the proposed wall, menu board, and pylon signage was included in your packet. Up on the screen, you can see this is where the site is being developed now. Of course, these are a little bit outdated, but this is the city's zoning map showing the approximate location of what's the lot being developed and where the construction is taking place now. The rendering on the right is taken from Near Map, which is much newer imagery that was taken this summer, so you can see that the grading was underway at the time when that picture was taken. The picture on the right-hand side is a rendering of the building with the proposed signage, and then your packet actually details more of what that signage looks like at different elevations, the front, rear, side, and setbacks. This is just the site plan that just kind of outlines some of the locations of the proposed signage, the menu boards, the directional sign going into the drive-through, the pylon sign up at Brookhaven Road, and then the signage that's attached to the building for both the Dairy Queen as well as the BFS. And then this is an example that was included in your packet with the dimensions of each of the sign and the sign types here. Based on the conditions and the standards for developing signage in Section 1369 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code, the applicant requests the following variance relief. Variance relief from the amount of total maximum wall signage permitted. Variance relief from the total number of wall signs permitted. Variance relief from the requirement that directional signage be made of wood or masonry with painted vinyl applied letters, as well as internal illumination. Variance relief from the maximum sign area permitted for menu boards, which the menu board is included in your packet for reference. Variance relief from the maximum sign height permitted for menu boards. One to note in your packet, the variance relief from the appearance standard for pylon signs that requires poles to be black. That is being struck. That only applies to billboards, not necessarily pole or pylon signs. So that request is being struck. Okay. Variance relief for having more than one surface display area in the pylon sign. And at the time of this report, the setback distance was not known. That was referenced in your packet. I talked to the applicant. It is more than 15 feet back, and they're going to provide documentation that the pylon sign that would be up at Brookhaven Road is set back the required minimum setback. Yes, sir. So with that, that will conclude staff's report.
Thank you. Do we have a representative for this case? Yeah. VAR 24-163.
Yes, Howard Goodstein, BFS, 116 Shannon Drive, Morgantown. So kind of as Ricky laid out, we're asking for a few variances related to the overall signage on the site. The first, just no particular order, but the wall signs, the total is permitted per the code is 102 square feet, and we're asking for 207, which is an additional 168. Now, the Dairy Queen signage is signage that is required by the franchisor, so they have their standards that they require. This exterior elevation is what we normally do. Because we were already over the signage requirements, the box signs that you see in the middle of the two BFS peaks and the two on the side of the building, we have already eliminated those due to didn't want to ask for too much request. Now, if you look at our other store in Saberton, we have them. If you look at our Southern States store in Saberton, we have them. That's our typical signage package, but those box signs, the one on the front and the two on the side, are not part of what we're requesting. We have already struck those out of consideration of asking for more already. And the Dairy Queen, again, you're allowed 2 signs each. So the Dairy Queen is asking for an additional 3 per the franchisor's requirements, and the BFS is an additional 2 signs. So that's the request on the wall signage. It is one, to take advantage of the advertising portion of it to stay consistent with our image standards. And for Dairy Queen, they tell you what to do, and you really don't have a lot of options, in all honesty. The directional sign, number 2, I mean, there's one directional, Ricky, if you go back to the site plan, you can kind of see on that right-hand corner of the building, there's one directional. I mean, it's industry standards. They're not built out of litter masonry, and they're internally illuminated now. I mean, any fast food place down Route 7 has the exact same directional signs. So it's an aluminum sign that's internally illuminated. Again, we tried to limit it because we knew we were asking for a variance. So there's one on that corner to direct traffic to the drive-through behind the building. On the menu board, there's 2 requests as it relates to the menu board. One is the maximum sign area that's permitted per the code is 32. We're asking for an additional 15.3 square feet for a total of 47.3 square feet. And again, this is Dairy Queen's standard menu board. We buy from their approved vendors, and this is their approved menu board. The other is the maximum height. Per the code, it's 6 feet high, and we're asking for a variance of 1.3 foot in height. Dairy Queen's menu board is 7.3, so 6 to 7.3. And again, it's in the back of the building, not visible to anybody other than traffic that is going there for the drive-through. That's the only reason behind the building. Third is the pylon sign, which is out front. One, we're asking that only one sign face is permitted. We're asking for 3 additional. So there's a sign face for the BFS, a sign face, if you want a sign face for the Dairy Queen, the gas pricing, and then the bottom is the reader board. Of note, you're allowed to have 250 square feet of signage on this, and we're under that. So even with all of the signage, we're not exceeding the maximum allowed amount of signage per the code. Again, up and down Saberton, Route 7, you see every place has more than one sign face. I mean, literally every place you go up has at least a reader board and a sign, if not more. Hardee's actually has 2 signs out front. So completely consistent with industry standards, completely consistent with the nature of the area. Like I said, all of Route 7 has multiple sign faces on their pylon signs. The other, not really a variance request, I guess, but where we fall within the interstate sign overlay district, and pylon signs are allowed, and there is no height restriction, but the board can say what the height is. So there is no defined limitation, but you have the ability to say it can be only, you can put a limitation on it.
Right.
Our sign is 34.9 feet high. And in all honesty, I think they probably did that because of the interstate issues and different elevations below the interstate. So 34.9 gets us above our building. The only part of the sign that's going to be above the building and kind of visible from, if you're coming off the on-ramp, is kind of the BFS, the top portion of it. And we have to put the pylon sign out front because we can only have one sign, and I got to have the prices out front, right, when you drive in. So I couldn't put it in the back of the building, or I'd be here for another variance asking for two signs. So that's a typical height sign for us. It's nothing crazy. It's lower than the existing utility poles that are out there.
Right.
This is the height sign we put everywhere. Quite frankly, if there wasn't a zoning, if I didn't have to be here, I probably would put them higher to get better visibility from the interstate.
Right.
But we're putting in, this is the standard height sign we have, and it gets us above our building. One panel.
Well, also, I mean, in terms of traffic volume, most of it's coming off the interstate, but what comes to mind where your property's sited, in terms of just visibility coming in from Preston County even, too, because there's some topographic variability
Right. so-
approaching from the east.
Yeah, that's right. So the higher the better, in all honesty. But 34 is pretty standard. I mean, it's nothing crazy. And again, there's no restrictions in the code. It's just you guys have to approve it.
Yeah, the code also, if I may, Mr. President, it says that, you may also consult with the city engineer and the planning director on that. I did speak with our city engineer, and both of us did not find that the sign height proposed is unreasonable. So, given the topology and its access to the interstate.
Do you have any sense of what the height of the pylon sign of the other BFS than Saberton is?
I don't know off the top of my head, in all honesty. This is, if you know our store at Cheat Lake, right off of 43,
Yeah.
That's pretty
that's
high.
that size sign.
Right.
Yes.
It's just a comparison, like,
I honestly
is it fairly consistent with the other ones up and down?
Yeah, I mean, this is the sign we put in unless there would be some zoning restriction that I couldn't get past.
Okay.
But that, if you know the one at the new Cheat store, that's it's the exact same sign.
The Saberton one may be like 22 feet.
Yeah.
And I
But
honestly, I don't know.
the sightline issues are quite a bit different.
Different.
Right, that's mid-block where you just don't
Yeah.
have the same issues.
And it's more level, there's more,
Right.
there's less topographic.
And I honestly think that's why there isn't a restriction, because of the interstate
Yeah.
issues. I think they're giving the board the leeway to make those decisions on an ad hoc basis, because every site's gonna be different.
Do we have any sense of what the actual elevation change is between, say, 68 and your grade?
I honestly
don't know.
We don't know.
But as the applicant alluded to, we did look at the existing power poles there, and it is substantially lower than the
Okay.
top. So, yeah, it's not going to go, it gets above their store, but it doesn't go above the adjacent property where it's up in there, you know.
Yeah, it's literally, it'll be the white BFS panel, that's the only part that's higher than the building.
Okay.
And the dual pylon, that's more consistent with what's standard.
And
That's
I think
industry
engineering
standard, yeah.
Just the
It
base.
has to.
Yeah, I think engineering-wise, you probably want to do it that way.
And one other quick question, if we could go back to page 2, or even the site plan with the,
Yep.
with the districts, on the very southern part of the site, it looks like there's a tiny part of it that might be out of city limits.
Yeah, we brought that in.
That's,
It's
That was
in
last
city
time or
limits
a
now.
couple
That's-
Oh,
of
okay.
years ago.
It's
That's-
all part of city limits.
Oh,
We
okay.
brought it,
I just wanted to make sure that you weren't like trying to get approval for the pylon sign when
outside.
move it.
Yeah, no, we had brought the piece of the property that was outside city into
Okay,
the city.
okay. Oh, I remember seeing that now. Okay, I wasn't out there.
so that's an old, the city zoning map
Yeah.
hasn't been updated yet, but that's all been addressed.
Okay, perfect. All right.
So,
Any questions at this point? Thank you.
And just to one quick reiteration, you did touch on this, but I just want to be doubly sure. This is entirely consistent with your marketing and other things.
Yeah, literally every store we do looks the same. This will have less signage because of the
Okay.
elimination of the box signs.
Okay.
Thank you for your flexibility in terms of the dormers
Right?
Yeah.
with regard to the BFS signage. Okay. We may have other questions for you, but thank you.
Thanks.
Yes. So we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing for this case, VAR 24. Let me reference the, I'm sorry, VAR 24-163. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case, now is your opportunity to do so. Seeing no one, close the public hearing. Mr. Yeager?
Staff recommendation, staff had no comments or modification to the findings of facts listed in the application. As is customary with the signed variance petition, no recommendation is submitted by staff concerning the variance. If the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the variance relief requested, staff recommends the variance relief be pertaining to the pole pylon sign be approved, contingent on the applicant submitting a conditional use application to install the sign in accordance with the section of code, and that be approved at the next Board of Zoning Appeals meeting on December 18th. So this is kind of a prelude to the applicant coming back and submitting a conditional use to actually install the pylon sign, which is part of the ISOD district.
Thank you. And no conditions, just to state that for the record,
No, just to
and
come,
no correspondence received by planning.
no correspondence received by planning.
Thank you. I guess the first variance, I'm least comfortable with the granting the 168.3 square foot request. It's large. On the other hand, given the scale of the development, it's not unreasonable.
No.
Thoughts, anyone?
Honestly, I don't have any
Everything else
reservations.
is fairly straightforward. I'm just a little uncomfortable with the nearly 200 square foot with respect to that first variance relief,
Yeah.
that particular request.
So I believe the petitioner did say that it was all, and maybe I should ask this again, that total amount of variance in 168 feet, could you just come to the podium for just a
Yeah,
moment?
the actual variance request is for 168 additional square feet. and
Right.
That is inclusive of Dairy Queen corporate required signage,
Right.
and then those 3 BFS signs with the elimination of the box signs.
So all that's required signage, is that what you're saying?
Right, the Dairy Queen is required, the BFS is our image that we put up everywhere. And again, we've done this at the Southern State store has this kind of signage, the other store in Saberton has this kind of signage. So if you go to buy any of our stores, we have the exact same image everywhere, and it's, it's kind of the brand, and as a way to, show some movement on our side is why we eliminated the box signs, because we would always, again, drive by any of our stores and you will see box signs surrounding the dormers.
Right.
So how much of that variance is just like the Dairy Queen part without the,
I honestly didn't do the math
okay,
separately.
okay.
It looks like a lot, but
Yeah,
it's a significant.
right,
Amount,
it
right,
is, because their signage is their signage,
Yeah.
and they have 2 signs on the front and 1 on the side.
So my take on this is that, we see signage stuff all the time, and a lot of the reason why we see it all the time is because the signage code is antiquated. It's frankly, it's out of date. And what's being proposed is exactly consistent with where signage is. I mean, you're proposing to do the same thing that everybody else does. And if we pick an issue where economically and marketing, from a marketing perspective, hamstringing them when there's literally competitors who already have signage bigger
Right.
than this.
And it's not as if you had chosen not gone with Dairy Queen, and you had gone with a different franchisor, more than likely, you're still
Same thing.
dealing with the same signage design
Yeah, we
parameters.
deal with 6 or 7 national franchisors, and they all have sign packages that you have to put in, and it's like a non-negotiable thing.
Yeah.
This is our image, and if you want to put our brand in, you have to meet our image requirements, which is why the outside of the building meets the Dairy Queen image requirements and not, it doesn't look
Right.
like part of BFS.
Right.
And again, I do think if you drive up and down Route 7, you will see signage way in excess of the 102 square feet. This is not some novel, first-time concept that someone's asking for.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's pretty
And even-
consistent with the community there.
Right, and even though the development requires various requests, there's consistency in terms of how much the signage exceeds what's allowed.
Right.
It's not as if what you're proposing is inconsistent with what's expected along the corridor.
Right, I mean, honestly, I think gentleman's right, is 102 square feet really not much, and it's just like saying your directional signs have to be wood or masonry. I mean,
Yeah.
it just doesn't have, no one has a directional, I mean, if you had a wood or masonry sign, then you have to externally illuminate it, or you can't see it at night. I mean, so, that was from 1970 probably.
Right.
So I just think it's an antiquated concept to have a masonry directional sign.
Yeah. All right.
Does that address?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, thank you
Yeah,
very
thank
much. Do we have a chance to look at the findings of facts?
What page?
Pages 36,
Starts with
37.
I am pretty happy with the detail given in the findings of fact.
Yes.
However, it's a very minor thing, where it talks about adversely affecting the public health, safety. I agree that this signage is not likely to have much of an effect, but saying that there will be no adverse effects, we can't predict that. So can we change it from will to shall or should?
What's the page number, sir?
On 36.
Page 36.
It's the very first finding,
It's the first finding of fact.
just a tiny little. Because I don't want them to say there will be, and then 5 years down the road, something happens.
What would you propose to change it to? As such, there will be...
There should be no.
Or there will likely be?
Yeah.
No?
yeah, likely, yeah.
Just insert likely?
That's up to the board, yeah.
Would you be
Likely
are
is
you
fine.
comfortable with that? Okay, let's put that in. Likely between will and be.
Yeah.
Okay?
Everything else looked very straightforward. All right, so do we have a motion or is everyone comfortable, or any additional questions?
I don't.
Yeah, I move that we accept the findings of facts as stated in the packet for are we voting on one at a time, right?
Well, no, we can make the motion for the group of findings of fact and just vote to accept them,
Okay,
if you'd like to do that.
As amended.
as amended.
amended.
As amended with just that single word, likely,
Okay,
in the first finding of fact.
okay. I move that we accept the findings of fact as stated in the packet with the amendment for each of these variance requests.
And this is for, just to state for the record, this is for VAR 24-163 Rooston Farm Service Companies. I will second that motion as presented by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
So we have accepted the findings of fact for VAR 24-163. I move to grant the variance requests.
With the condition.
With, yeah, so there are conditions. We like
With the
to
conditions
just-
in the packet?
With,
Yep.
with the conditions in the packet. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to grant the variance for VAR 24-163. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We've granted your variance request. You will receive written notification from planning, generally 7 to 10 business days. But keep in mind, as always, our decision can be appealed in the Circuit Court of Montague County, and any work you undertake during that 30-day appeals period is done at your sole financial risk. So thank you very much. Have a good evening. All right, next agenda item, VAR 24-166. Benjamin Light, 845 Stewart Street, request by Benjamin Light for variance relief from section 1335.04, subsection A of the city's planning and zoning code regarding setback requirements. City Tax District 12, 3rd Ward, Tax Map 14, Parcel 371 in the R1A Single Family Residential District. Thank you.
So the applicant seeks to build an addition on the residence at the above referenced location. This addition is a master suite with a basement below. The new addition will not exceed 35 feet in height. And then here are some pictures of the site currently. The left image kind of shows not the scale, but where the addition to the home will be located. And then the picture on the right kind of shows the left, like the side of the property, if you would be positioned on that left image looking left. That is the site plan that kind of shows their setbacks that they're requesting. On the bottom is just kind of the little napkin drawing that indicates from the rear setback as well as, or the rear property line, as well as their side property line. And you'll notice the top property line distance is referenced as 13, and then that'll come up later in the variance that they're requesting. So just keep that in mind visually. So based on the conditions listed above, the applicant requests the following. Variance relief in the amount of 7 feet for the minimum rear setback of the single-family residence. And that's in relation to that 13 feet. If you'll look at section 133504 for setbacks, the minimum is 20. So that's just kind of that connection there. And then that concludes staff report.
Thank you. Do we have a representative for this case?
Yes.
Please come forward. Yeah, just approach the podium, state your name and
Benjamin
address.
Leach, 845 Stewart Street.
All righty. Yes. What are you proposing?
Well, we're proposing, due to the positioning of the home and the lot size, we're positioning to add on to our home, to expand, because obviously in the 70s they're small. We're looking to stay in the community and expand this home and improve it, opposed to leave, which I know probably isn't relevant to code, but that's the biggest reason we're wanting an addition. And it's not, there's an alleyway, a utility alleyway in between the left side and my other property owners to the left, and then to the rear, their positioning of their homes are completely different, so I don't see where it's going to be a problem with the neighbors unless they come up and say something different. But really, we're just looking to expand upon this home and make a little bit larger livable space.
Mm-hmm. And then, so you're citing your addition on that side of the structure. Are there factors driving, that?
The layout of the
versus-
existing home, so where that flag is at, to the left there, that first room is a small office that's going to be used as a walkway. So in building to not rehab the whole inside of the home, we're going to take that small office room out to be a walkway into that addition on that particular floor.
Mm-hmm.
And also with plumbing, my main sewer line comes probably center of the home, so the addition would miss that. and any kind of plumbing can be tied in, right on that side easily. We wouldn't have to do anything with the sewer. The sewer's out of the way.
Topographically, where you're proposing to put the addition is flatter than on, say, on the other side of the house?
The other side of the house is basically up against Seward Street.
Yeah.
So we really don't have the room due to the curvature of the road here. And there's a side porch that we just built recently on the left-hand side in that front area. So, and also in the back, I discovered right kind of where the line goes through the property, my neighbor's sewer line from up above comes through that backyard at a certain point and runs down that side yard, which again would be missed by the addition, but it kind of eliminates that area to be, part of, dug as an addition, because we'd have to get, it's just a 4-inch sewer, but, yeah. And this is, it's a big hillside here, but it's really unusable yard because it is such a slope. So, it's not a nice flat yard. It's a very unique lot.
But the way that if I'm understanding what you're proposing, if we're talking about, is on the left, would you call that shot like the front of your house?
The garage side here is the entrance from Morgan Street.
Okay. So if I'm understanding this correctly, you're actually pushing the addition to line up with the back side of the house?
Yeah.
And not
yeah,
the front?
The back side of the home.
Right.
And there's an overhang roof here to that door. So we would just go from that door to the back side of the home and then out to the left towards the alleyway or utility alleyway that MUB has a 10-foot in between the properties, which is kind of the next picture, I think, right here with the wheelbarrow and stuff. There's that is really their kind of utility way there that they're coming through and running that new pipeline. And we spoke with them, and they said that we could be on that side, we could be 10 foot of center of their pipe that they're putting in, but I'm proposing 10 foot from the property line back on that side, which is well within the variance for a side, but we're still going to stay set back to make sure that we're out of their way. I did talk to MUB when they were on site too, before we signed off paperwork, whenever they were going to come through and do a construction easement about a potential addition, and they gave me a letter stating such, just as long as I was 10 foot center of the pipe.
And again, if I'm understanding the information, the minimum rear setback required is 20 feet. But setting aside the addition, your current house is closer than that, correct?
Correct, yes.
Right.
Yeah,
So
it's
it's already
closer.
non-conforming, and you're not proposing to do really.
I'm just continuing that line, that the way that the house sits in the lot, it's gonna get a little bit closer than that 15 foot. If we continue the straight side, back of the
Yeah.
home is a straight line, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had it surveyed not too long ago to see, and as anybody gets something surveyed, it's smaller than what you thought, and
Yeah.
trees that you cut down are not really yours, so, yeah.
Okay. And what's the square footage that you're adding on? Do you know that?
It's gonna be roughly 19 foot by 20 foot, so roughly 20 by 20.
Okay. How does that compare to your existing house?
The existing home is, I believe, only about 42 by 24. One floor. So this is a substantial,
Yeah.
for us, you can imagine the rooms are small and, dated. That's why we wanted to do a larger addition to have a little bit more space.
Do we have any sense of how that affects the developed lot percentage?
It's still below that.
It's still below.
Okay. Or else we'd be asked about that.
There you go.
I don't have any other.
Well, I mean, he's not increasing the degree of nonconformity because it's already, yeah.
I mean, technically it is because the corner of the existing house is 15 and this is what, 13.6?
Yeah, as it
But
goes,
it's in plane with the existing house.
correct, yeah, we're not setting back farther than the existing house, it's just the way the property line goes. It's, as we stay straight with the existing house, it's gonna come closer to that line.
Yeah. And asking you to maintain the 15-foot, that would be costly.
Yeah, it would set back, well, it wouldn't work in a sense that we would be, you know, if we wanted to maintain the size of it for layout, it would push us over this way too much, we really couldn't. Yeah. We're trying to work with the existing structure the best we can and incorporate it, because there's another bedroom in the back we're trying to use the small office that's above, like I said, is to transform into a closet walkway through, so we don't disrupt the existing home, and it flows pretty nicely with everything else.
So toward the rear, is it more level in terms
No,
of slope?
That corner slopes off considerably both ways.
Okay. Well, I'm just in terms of you're making it flush with the rear facade.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be because of, well, there's the existing layout, but also there's slope considerations, I would think. Because it looks as if it does, as you come toward the front of the lot, it's slopier.
It's more of a, when you leave the lot, it gets a little bit flatter, but right around the house, it has that mound from
Right.
construction that's pretty steep and drops off. And my basement is there's only about 3 foot of block underneath there, so when we come out with this addition, it's probably gonna be almost an exposed, you know, a drop footer, or it's gonna be pretty well level with the front of the yard where it sits, because we're only 3 foot below grade now,
Right.
because the windows go into that room now.
Mhm.
But once, on the other side, this corner, it slopes fastly and flattens out, so, in between the properties.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Lee. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to case or request VAR 24-166, now is your opportunity to do so. Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. Mr. Yee or Mr. Thompson?
For staff recommendation, please see the attached application to review the findings of fact listed, as staff had no comments or modifications. Staff have no objections to the applicant's request for variance relief. If the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the applicant variance relief from Section 133504A, Part 4 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code, the new principal structure shall be subject to the following conditions. The principal structure shall comply with Section 133504A regarding setbacks, minimum setback 5 feet. A new and accurate site plan shall be submitted to city staff for review and approval, and be approved by all city departments, agencies, with peer review before a building permit is issued. Variance relief is only given in reference to Section 133504A4 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code. Any other modifications or changes to the site plan shall be compliant with the city's Planning and Zoning Code, or the applicant shall seek variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Thank you. All right. Want to ask about, can you speak to the nature of the hardship you're seeking relief from?
I'd say overall the economy, I mean, you know, we're pretty much priced out of new housing at this point. Homes that used to be $350 are now $650, so we've looked for about 4 or 5 years. I have a child on the way in December, and This would be obviously a little bit later project, but we're also looking at school districts, you know, and we're wanting to stay in the city. It's convenient for us for work, and also just to improve the community just over the hill, you know, and even in our areas, there's a lot of nicer homes, and we're just looking to add square footage and add value as well as expand our family. But this is an option for me that's a lot more affordable than moving out of the city in one of these overpriced housing plans.
All right, thank you. Well, I mean, it's not an unreasonable development
No.
of the property.
But I do have a question, that if you could sort of expand on this just a little bit with the finding of fact where the variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare or the rights of adjacent property owners or residents because, and you answered, there's a public alleyway separating the property that we are requesting to build addition near. How does that relate to not affecting the public health, safety, or welfare? How does the alleyway do that?
Well, I just assumed that since there's a 10-foot strip in between the two properties, that it wasn't right up against the adjacent property owner's line.
Okay.
And also, like their back lot and their hillside, there's a lot of property in between the structures. We're not going to be, where we're putting it, we're not coming really close to another structure or anything like that, or obstructing somebody's view the way the homes are positioned. The way that hillside sits, the front sits way down lower, and then the side is actually apartment complexes, which I used to own. I should have kept them. But it's their backyard that I'd be coming close to, not like, you know, obstructing any kind of view or anything. So I can't really speak if it's not going to affect somebody, but in my opinion, it's an unusable corner. It's my neighbors aren't lined up the same position as my home. They all were in different ways away from that corner of my lot.
So you mentioned aside from another child or maybe a couple or whatever, but aside from that, this addition is not increasing the amount of people that are going to be on your or around your property.
No, it's not for any kind of rental or any kind of thing like that. No, it's you know, personal use and just 3 people that are going to be in the home at this point.
And when you build this addition, do you see having to do any kind of, on the part specific to the variance on that side, any kind of drainage remediation or anything like that?
Yeah, we're going to refer to MUB with any, I'm sure when we submit the permits that they'll let us know any kind of drainage or anything that we need to do sloping wise. I'd assume that the way the sloping already is and in place, we're not going to change too much of the grading. We're just going to cut that front yard out and remove that, and then there will be a building there. So that slope shouldn't change much, but if there's anything that we need to do draining wise, if they feel that it changes because of more downspouts, would be happy to do and direct that towards the MUB utility way, that 10-foot into that area, so I'm not directing it into my neighbor's yard. It would go towards that utility ditch.
Then can we, I don't know exactly how to say this, but could we allude to that any potential drainage issues will be rectified according to MUB requirements?
Are you referencing that on page 47 with respect to the first
first one.
okay?
Yes.
How would you like to modify that? Just
Well, or does that really doesn't come under our purview, but if you want.
Well, I kind of think it does, because adding, like, you know, permitting them to build closer to the property line presents a potential, I'm not saying it will happen, but the potential exists to create some sort of drainage issue for an adjacent property. And we granted that, right? So if we could just say something to the effect that drainage issues for other property owners will be rectified according to MUB's.
How about drainage issues potentially impacting adjacent property owners will be mitigated in accordance with
Yeah.
MUB standard.
MUB standards
Yeah, I think that's.
and specifications. Can we do that, Mr. Yeager?
Yes, sir. So I'll read it back. There's a
Yeah.
public alleyway separating the property that we are requesting to build an addition near, and any drainage issues will be mitigated in accordance with MUB regulations.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. And then, in terms of the site plan, that requesting the new and accurate site plan, that's just standard operating procedure, right?
Yeah.
It's not, that request is not specific to,
The reason that it was added is because the like site plan submitted doesn't show any of the like code or engineering stuff that we'd look at to like pass us through and give them a building permit. We're requiring them to submit like a legitimate, like, you know, what are the walls going to be like, what's the support,
I see.
you know, to that effect. Because this site plan that they submitted isn't up to the standards that we need for, you know, a building permit. But it works for the variance to show their issue.
You get it
I was
moving.
gonna have it engineered, but again, I wanted to make sure the variance was okay before I spent
sure.
the money on an architect, so that's what I was.
right.
Yeah,
is
that's
the
why I did
intermediate
the
step.
hand drawings, I apologize, I at least got the.
Oh, no, it's fine.
I love hand.
All right, thank you. Let's see.
I was like, holy smokes.
Any issues with any of the findings of fact?
No.
No further. Okay.
So I
So-
move that we,
Oh, go ahead.
I move that we accept the findings of facts with the,
As amended.
as amended, as stated in the packet.
Thank you.
And I will second that motion by Ms. Cook to accept the findings of fact. So we have a motion to accept and a seconded. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then I will move to grant the variance request
With the conditions.
with the, yes, with the conditions referenced on page 44 of the packet pertaining to VAR 24-166.
I second.
And we have a second on that motion.
Second.
Yeah, no, we have a second.
Oh.
Ms. Cook. Okay, so we have a motion to grant and seconded by Ms. Cook. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So, Mr. Lee, we have granted your variance request, subject to the conditions as we referenced in the motion and voted on. So keep in mind that all decisions, our decision pertaining to your case can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County. By the way, you will receive written notification in 7 to 10 business days. But keep in mind that it can be appealed, and any work that you undertake during that 30-day appeals window, you do at your sole financial risk. Thank you for coming down this evening, and good luck with your project. Next case is VAR 24-168, 304 Market LLC, 228 Prospect Street, request by Jeffrey Bailey on behalf of 304 Market LLC for variance relief from section 1365 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding minimum off-street parking requirements for a new neighborhood convenience store establishment, City Tax District 13 in the 5th Ward, Tax Map 26, Parcel 126 in the B1 Neighborhood Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President. The applicant seeks to operate a neighborhood convenience store use in a mixed-use building at the above referenced address in your packet. And also, you can see here on the screen, the image on the left shows an aerial view of the Monongalia parcel viewer map, and this is the property in question here. The image on the right is the many zoning districts in this area, but the one that the property is currently situated in is in a B1 neighborhood business district. The applicant would like to establish a 1,000 square foot convenience store that is meant to serve area residents and will only be staffed by one person. And this is the image on the right-hand side was provided, and I think a copy is in your packet of what the layout of that space would be. The image on the right-hand side shows the building here that is currently a multi-family with 3 units. That will be converted into a mixed-use dwelling that where the first floor is the commercial use and the second floor will remain residential. And that will conclude staff report.
Thank you very much. Do we have a representative for this case? Please state your name and your address. Thank you very much.
My name is Jeffrey Bailey, and the address is 228 Prospect Street. 228 Prospect Street, we purchased a few years ago, and ironically, when we did a little bit of a history search in the neighborhood, this used to serve as a convenience store back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, owned by a local minister. Then was converted by the person that we purchased the property from into a 2-bedroom apartment down below, but you can see where the walls were added and where the convenience store began. And my wife and I, we've been here before as we own that entire block, and we're really working to change the block and change everything. And one of the things we want to do is provide a service to all the WVU students that live in that area. Dorms, fraternities, and there's 3 dorms, goodness gracious, 7 fraternities, 6 sororities, plus a lot of residential homes, of rental homes. We are asking for a variance in the parking requirement. We're guessing that in the well into the 90th percentile is foot traffic. That'll be our targeted audience. People walking to and from campus, people coming from the dorms, people come. And we just want to be able to provide a small convenience store where they can come and grab snacks, drinks. They run out of toilet paper, they run out of paper towels, batteries, a place that they can come, just knowing that it's a needed commodity. Actually, to be real honest, our son lived in this neighborhood that we owned, and it was one of the things he said that they needed most, is especially the kids in the dorms and all that. So we're looking for a variance in the parking. The reason why we're asking for that is, as you know, parking is very limited. We do own those homes, and a lot of the parking that we own, if you can see in between the homes there, are for our tenants. We really do not want to reduce parking's a high need and high demand. We don't really want to reduce the amount of parking that we have for our tenants, of course, because that will create a hardship for them. We do have a parking space that we keep for our family while we're working on the properties. Well, our families are the ones that are going to be our children, and my wife and I we're going to be the ones that are going to run the market. So we already have that parking for employees. We do have, it's required for 4, we do have an area where we won't reduce for our tenants, where we could reduce to 2 and still not reduce anything for our current tenants. There are 2 other, I know it's a unique district inside of it. There are 2 other businesses inside of this that do not have parking for their patrons, but we know that we want to be able to provide. Another thing that's great about Prospect Street is there is a total of 4 plus 5, that's 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 street parking spots right there along Price Street, where if people do need to come, they can use that street parking there. That is metered parking by the city.
Oh, it's metered.
Just spoke to one of the city parking attendants, and they're actually getting ready to convert those. Right now, it's still the old coin-operated ones. Well, college students are the ones that basically use those. They don't have that. So they're getting ready to put in the QR codes just like they have in most of the lots there. He just told me that actually yesterday. So we do want to be able to provide parking if needed for patrons coming by, again, without reducing it for our tenants. I will tell you that I seriously doubt they're ever used because, like I said, I would guess well into the high 90% would be foot traffic.
Right. Any questions?
Yeah, I don't understand where the parking's going to be located that you're requesting.
Can we go back to this,
Do you have
the
a-
aerial view?
Yep.
Okay.
I almost need a,
So,
yeah, go over there and point, I wouldn't
there,
mind,
okay.
please.
So we have a couple things. Number one, oddly enough, on this plat, there's two houses.
Okay.
We're not talking about this one. This is 508. This is Bachner Lane that goes in between.
Okay.
It's an alleyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually not owned by the city. It's actually owned by us. It's not a city road. It's not a city fairway area there. But right here along this, there's 2 parking spots right along 228 Prospect.
Uh-huh.
And then where we park as a family, we park behind 228, right here, there's a parking space right here. So it would be right in between there is where we would offer the parking. Plus, of course, in addition to, one of them, right now, currently, we have parking in front of 228 Prospect Street, where I'm pointing here. We're going to eliminate that. That was parking that we had for 228A, where we're putting in the market. But it would be very difficult for patrons to get into the store if we have cars parked in front of the doorway there. So we don't want to, patrons would not be able to get between cars there. We do have enough room, if need be. The door would be on this side of the building, if need be to be right here and still be off the sidewalk in front of that building too.
And so you're requesting 2 spaces?
Just instead of the required 4, just reducing it to 2 spaces. Because again, be honest, we work there all the time, of course, it's our properties. I would guess that parking spaces would hardly ever be used, but we know that we need to,
Have
provide them
something.
for the patrons. But that's why we're asking for the variance of reduction from 4 to 2. Again, our foot traffic and WVU students and professors, oh my goodness, do they walk by our place all the time.
And in this work on the bottom floor, the change, will there be any changes in the occupancy of the units upstairs?
No, it'll be the exact same. And actually, I spoke to Mr. Yeager about that yesterday. He asked me, it does not affect the parking that we have available for the unit upstairs. It does not affect them at all. I believe it's required 2 spaces, but we actually have 3 for the 3 bedrooms upstairs.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So that's an interesting thing. So it requires 2. You have 3.
Yeah.
So there's
Is
plus
it-
1 there. Yeah.
Really possible, just for technicality's sake, to switch that 1 spot over to
For your shop.
your shop, just on paper? Because then you only need a variance for 1.
Here's the issue. 2 of those spots are stacked spots, so the tenants block each other in.
okay. All
So it's a longer, I guess the length of 2 car spots
Yeah.
is what it is, and that's one that's right behind. So it's a stacked spot. That's the issue.
So functionally, it can hold, but realistically.
And we have to keep that within the same house. We can't have a
Yeah.
tenant from one place and a tenant from that
Yeah.
blocking each other in.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
Great
And then,
question.
for this case, Mr. Yeager, do ADA require for even just one of the spots apply?
That's in the staff recommendation, and what we would ask that be done is that if the variance is granted, that it be conditioned upon a type 2 site plan, which would look at this a little bit more detail to make sure the applicant's compliant with all those requirements.
Right, all right. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Planner? Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's just, all right, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing for this case. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case, now's your opportunity to do so. Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. Mr. Yeager?
Oh, sorry.
No,
Thank
you're
you.
fine.
Staff had no modifications or comments regarding the proposed findings of fact. Furthermore, staff does not object to the applicant's request. If the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the applicant variance relief from Table 1360 of 50401 regarding the minimum off-street parking requirement or the proposed neighborhood convenience store use as well as the mixed-use dwelling, staff recommends that the approval be subject to the following conditions in your packet: that the applicant submits a Type 2 site plan application to the Development Services Department for review and approval regarding the proposed uses, and 2, that the applicant participates in a technical review, which is required as the Type 2 site plan, with all city agencies that have purview, and all questions or concerns raised, addressed, or that any questions or concerns raised by the tech review will be resolved by the applicant to the satisfaction of city staff. That will conclude staff's report.
All right, thank you. Are we comfortable with the first finding of fact, Mr. Planner and Ms. Cook? In terms of, I mean, yes, it's, you know,
When you look at it, yeah.
he's citing or referencing the foot traffic, which doesn't cause demand for
Right.
parking spaces, but can we really make that statement?
I think it comes back to the will not. It's such a definitive statement, like, we can't really predict that unless there's a thorough economic and traffic study done to predict that. I think it's reasonable to assume that it likely won't have sort of adverse, not providing parking is not likely to.
I guess the nature of the operation, it's not going to eventuate in increased vehicular traffic volume.
Not likely.
Because it's not as if it's not a residential use, it's,
And the only thing there,
Mercantile use, so.
this is very specific to a parking requirement. They're allowed to put their business there. So if by nature of that business being there, if that increases traffic in the neighborhood, that's not our question. Our question is parking. Like, does not providing 2 parking spots cause a problem to the neighborhood? I'm leaning to no. But again, that's a projection. That's a likely.
Actually, I would say not providing 4 parking spaces definitely doesn't create a hardship because it's not trying to find more spaces when there isn't any.
Yeah. I mean, if we stuck to it, said no, you need 4, when it wouldn't be used in the first place, but you need 4, that would cause an adverse financial hardship in that the business might not be able to actually go.
Come up with 2 more.
Yeah.
it's not as if you're proposing a reconfiguration of residential space that would require you to find additional parking. It's, okay.
So can we amend the definitive statement to something that the variance likely will not adversely affect?
Yeah.
No, likely.
And then I have another,
Yeah, and that fourth finding of fact, I just, my own, I'm only, so the fourth one is there are two other businesses within this B1. You're comparing what you're proposing with what's already extant within the neighborhood, but I'm almost hesitant to even include that because, I mean, you're asking us to consider your case, and your case is specific.
I get that, but in a previous case tonight, we did the exact same thing. We said the signage you're proposing is consistent with what other businesses are doing.
Right.
Which is the exact same thing we're saying here. The lack of parking in this neighborhood is consistent with what is already going on. So it's really, although the issue may be different, the comparison to other conditions is the
Is
same.
appropriate, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. All right, never mind.
My question, though, is on the second finding of fact. The variance arises from special conditions or attributes which pertain to the property. And the answer given was not applicable.
It's not true.
I don't think that's really true. I think in rare instances, a lot of people answer this question saying that, well, it's the site that's causing the problem, when in reality it's what they're asking to do. But in your situation, it is the site. It is the fact that this site does not have what you're required to do, and what you're asking from a business perspective is totally fine. So it is a special condition of the site. The lack of appropriate parking on the site
Yeah, that's right.
causes the problem.
So we could, if
How do you want to word that? Yeah.
the lack of adequate parking constitutes the
On-site.
reason for the variance request.
Yeah, yeah,
We could put that back in. Do you want to put it back in?
Yeah.
yes.
And can we put that back in? The lack of, it's not even the lack of adequate, well, yeah, the
Yeah,
lack
it
of
is.
adequate parking prompts, is the primary reason for the variance request.
The reason.
Yeah, so I could,
It's the reason.
so the lack of adequate parking on the site constitutes the reason or necessity for the variance request?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're comfortable, we're all right with the last one. All right, so any other
I'm good,
questions?
I'm good.
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to, for a vote to accept the findings of fact
As amended.
as amended with regard to the first finding of fact. We added, I think, the word likely, or not likely, diversity effect, and then we put in, or we reference lack of adequate parking in the subject property, prompting the reason for the variance request for the second finding of fact. Do we have a second?
A second.
So we have a motion to accept the findings of fact, seconded by Ms. Cook. And we do also want to mention that there are conditions for this case referenced on page 56 of the packet.
Let me get to the variance. Hold on.
Yeah. So, do we have a motion?
Well, you made the motion second, and we got to vote.
Okay, that's right, I'm sorry. So how do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So we have granted your variance, and
Findings of fact, now you got to vote.
Oh.
Grant the variance. So I make a
will
motion.
you use the, okay, go ahead. You make the motion to grant the variance. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I move that we grant the variance with the staff recommendations in the packet.
And I will second that motion to grant the variance for this case, VAR 24-168.
All in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we have granted your variance request for your case. You will receive written notification from planning, 7 to 10 business days. But keep in mind, our decision this evening can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County, and any work that you do in that 30-day appeal window is done at your sole financial risk. Good luck with your project. You're welcome. Okay, moving on to VAR 24-169, Total Property Management LLC, 275 Alum Street, request by Total Property Management LLC for variance or relief from Section 1335.04 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code regarding setback requirements in the City Tax District 14, 6th Ward, Tax Map 22, Parcel 7.6, in the R1A Single Family Residential District. Mr. Gager.
Thank you. The applicant seeks to build an attached garage on the side of the residence at the above referenced location. It'll be a 10 by 24 space, 240 square foot garage. It will match the height of the home at grade. And there are some pictures showing the site from an aerial, and then that is the proposed location of the site for the garage I'm in, and the drawing on the right kind of shows what it'll look like, the parameters of the build.
Thank you.
So that drawing is showing the kind of relationship with the rest of the site. That kind of square on the right side is going to be that garage addition, and there's that indicator showing that it is 18 feet back from the property line, while the setback for that district is 20. And then it's just going to be in line with the house, the front of the house, and the back of the house.
Right.
Based on the conditions listed above, the applicant requests the following. Variance relief in the amount of 2 feet for the minimum rear setback of a single-family residence. And that concludes staff report.
Thank you. Do we have a representative for this case? Yes. Yeah, please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Bob Jones, 1558 Van Vorst Road, Morgantown. The reason we want this variance is because the garage that he has now, or that doesn't have, it's just a concrete slab there. It was in one of the pictures here, and that's where there was parking in the past, but it's in really bad shape, and he wants to be able to build a garage to put his car in during winter months and during the summer because some concerns he has, you know, about keeping his vehicle outside. The existing home that is there now already sits at that 18 feet from the property line that we propose to add this additional structure to, this garage. And it's not changing any of the lines of the house as far as where it sits on the property now, on the front of it or this back. And we propose to be able to do this accessory garage you know, on that side of the house in pretty much the same footprint as the existing concrete pad. So it's not intruding on, we're not going to excavate any of that hillside. And it does have a 4-foot high concrete masonry backfill and core filled wall that will be against that because we don't want wood that close to the hillside. So we're going to use masonry walls around the entire U shape of that garage, just as reinforcement in case something happened that hill ever did slide. For any reason, I'll have that wall that is the garage wall, the bottom portion of that garage wall, that will hold that up, and it's steel reinforced and grouted with concrete. So we kind of not taking any of that hillside off, and like I said, we thought about a couple different things, and having that 2-foot variance isn't going to intrude on any of the neighbors' property because up that top of that hillside, there's some houses up there in the road, and down below on the other side of the house, it's just a straight drop-off side of the house on the left side of the house, and we really can't move it forward because it would encroach on the parking that he has now, which is just like a 1-car spot there that runs right along Allen Street.
Right.
So that's why we're asking for this variance on the property line offset there to be able to build this one-car garage there. And it's a pretty small garage. It's only 10 foot wide and 24 feet deep, so it's not very big. It's not as big, not a two-car or anything. It's just a one-car garage.
If I may interject real quick,
Right.
for the reasoning as well as why it can be moved forward is that it would put in a violation of a separate code for front-loaded garages. So I just wanted to state that out there as why it can't be moved forward.
In terms of it not being flush with the front facade.
Correct.
Right.
Well, it will be flush with the front.
That's what.
It's gonna
yeah,
be
that's-
even with the
that's
house,
point
yeah,
that-
on the
Mr.
front and the
Thompson's
back.
making.
You can't
And,
make it proud of the house.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you use the word, is this technically an accessory structure?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what it was classified with on our building
Is it?
permit.
Let me look and
Because,
check.
I mean, it's on the end of the structure.
It's not a separate,
I filed for it the first time as a new construction, and they changed it and said, no, it's not, it's an accessory structure.
I think for building permit, it might be, but since it's attached to the home.
But, I
and-
mean, from a functional standpoint, it's not really an accessory.
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no, you can't like enter, is there a door connecting into the home?
Yes, there is.
Then that's why we're looking at it as principal, because there's a door between the garage and the home.
Yeah, there's a fire door
That you can
between,
walk
there's
through.
also fire barriers that we are included in that between the house and the garage,
Yeah.
as per the code. And there's future plans to have electrical in it, but it's not in our building at this time. We didn't include that, but the owner will at a later date come back and re-permit for the electrical. So at this time, it's just going to be a manually operated garage door. And there will be, like I said, the fire door between the inside of the house so they can come into the garage from inside the house.
okay. But to be completely clear, all you're specifically asking about is a 2-foot variance for setback.
Yes, sir. That's
And-
correct.
And what that effectively does is it just allows you to maintain the already non-conformant setback.
Yes, sir.
It already breaks the rule, you're just breaking the
Yeah,
same rule.
I think this house was built in the early 80s.
So, I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is really the same issue that we've already seen this
And
evening.
behind this house, it's all wood line. Between that neighbor, his neighbor behind his house, and his house, that area, that 18 feet there, there's just all wood line there.
Right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. We are going to go ahead and open the public hearing for VAR 24-169. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case, now is your chance to do so. Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. Mr. Thompson?
Please see the attached application to review the findings of fact listed, and as staff had no comments or modifications. Staff recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals approves the applicant's request for variance relief given the layout of the subject site. If the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the applicant variance relief from Section 1335-04A, Part 4 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code, the new principal structure shall be subject to the following conditions. The variance relief is only given in reference to Section 1335-04A4 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code. Any other modifications or changes to the site plan shall be compliant with the city's Planning and Zoning Code, or the applicant shall seek variance relief from the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Thank you. So do we want, are we comfortable with that first finding of fact, just will not? Can we maybe make some additions to that?
Yeah.
I mean, you spoke to, the property lines and the wood lines and there not really being a visual or physical with respect to your neighbors.
Right,
Do you
that
wanna
really
just-
behind the house is not. The neighbors that are on the road above that, where Allen Street comes around there, they would be able to see his garage, but all they can look at now and see is the roof of his house.
Right.
You know?
It's not as if you're talking about a two-story.
No, it's a one-story house, and we're matching the exact roof line, only coming out 10 feet out, and matching the back of the house and the front of the house. As far as the aesthetics of it, it just lines right up with it.
But being closer to the rear property line than they're required, does that have any adverse, could it have any adverse effects from a safety perspective, from a health perspective, to any of the surrounding neighbors?
No, and even the drainage on it is going to be, the gutter drainage ties into the existing storm drain system that they already have in place.
Okay.
So we kind of really got that, and it was something he already had there before, where they used for drainage of that concrete.
Yeah.
And it ties into the storm drain system that goes to the house that's there now, and that's what we're going to be tying into.
Does, maybe it might be in the image, but so where you're gonna have the long exterior wall, basically the right side of the garage up against the embankment,
Yes.
does that embankment go basically from outside to outside of the garage? Like, is it the whole way
No,
along?
it actually does a little bit, but not the whole area. There is a distance between them. If you look at this, where those
Yeah.
wooden stakes are,
Okay.
that's where we propose to put it. In the very back there, you can see it's about a foot high, the dirt is. So that's all we're taking out of that.
Okay.
And then we're allowing for a concrete wall along that string, because that's the actual 10 foot from the structure. And the overhang is only 8 inches on this particular roof. So it matches the overhang of the house. And the gutter's on the front out here and on the back. So where it runs along that string, that's where we're gonna have a 4 foot high block masonry wall that's filled with,
Steel or
concrete grout to make sure that there's no issues with that bank coming against it and pushing on the structure or anything.
So currently, any water coming down that embankment basically just free flows across the
It runs
concrete?
right off of ground level from the back toward the front.
And it, for all intents and purposes, percolates into the ground?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when you add that addition, it's gonna prevent that from happening?
No, because where it percolates in the ground, as you can see, there's already a concrete slab there now. And when the water came down that hill before, because we were up there checking that out in a
Yeah.
big storm, and that's where he had that drain for the, and you can almost see it at the end of the concrete there. There's a black pipe sticking up, and that's where most of that water was going.
Okay.
So if we end up having to put some kind of a sump there, okay, because we thought about this, if we had to put a gravel sump there for that water to percolate in, that's what we'll do as well.
Okay. Are you, this may seem like it doesn't relate, but I'll get to why it does in a second. Any drain tile on the embankment side?
No.
Right.
No?
No, there's none coming out anywhere on that. The actual street drain comes down the street.
I mean, are
and-
you intending to put one?
No,
No.
no.
How are you gonna support that concrete wall?
It actually has a monolithic concrete slab that we're going to be pouring for the garage floor that's 6 inches thick with reinforced concrete in it. And my floor plan, I think he has that here somewhere in your drawings. My floor plan for the foundation actually shows that. It has a sideway cut of it.
That might be in the.
Yeah, I do have a copy of it, and I can show you that, but it is a monolithic slab with reinforced concrete and steel, and then that block wall sits on that concrete slab, and it has rebar that sticks up out of it that the masonry block is going to be laid on that we're going to grout fill.
Right.
So it's really, that wall is going to be secured to that slab.
This has absolutely nothing to do with this setback, but I'm telling you, there's gonna be hydrostatic pressure buildup behind that wall. I would suggest a drain tile.
Well, that's something we can absolutely amend in our drainage system there for the, yeah, I mean, yeah, putting a pipe in is not
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
that's not, you know, really a bigger issue for
How that
us.
actually relates to this is right now, the water can somewhat it can just percolate naturally. But as you encroach closer to the,
Right.
back property line, there's going to be a change in the water where it flows, just because now there's going to be a hard barrier preventing that. And my only thing is I would like to see that addressed somehow, like that you're aware of its potential issue and it'll be mitigated. Similar to before,
Right,
you're going to do what MUB suggests,
yes.
or something to that effect. But I think that's
Must.
a potential problem.
Right, and it wouldn't be difficult to tie a drainage pipe from, on that side of the house, into the existing stormwater
Yeah.
runoff that it already has. And certainly that's something we would do, absolutely.
Do you want to propose?
I mean, because we want to build it right, we don't want to go in and build anything wrong. It's
You don't
gonna
want
be
to
an
do it,
issue
yeah, you don't want to do
for
it again.
our, You know,
But in terms of granting the setback variant, the 2-foot requested, relating that to, I mean, those are all excellent.
I think it's really the same issue as earlier, is that as long as you follow MUBs, because this is getting closer in an area, adding building space closer to a property line that doesn't currently exist. So as long as you follow the
okay.
MUB's requirements,
And the applicant will have to do that in order to get the building permits.
yeah.
There you go.
yeah, because the property line's actually all the way to the top of that hill. His property goes all the way to the top of that hill.
So, I mean, as a requirement of the building code, of building permit, that mitigates that issue. So perhaps we just, instead of saying will not, same thing as before, will,
Will likely.
yeah.
How about just proposed construction modification will be carried out in accordance with site planning requirements and MUB standards?
Yeah.
Can we put that in, Mr. Yeager?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Is that, and I think it covers it in terms of how, like, physically and from a construction site development standpoint, how it relates to his request for the 2-foot variance. Okay, thank you. All right, so, any further discussion, any question? I mean, everything else seems, it's straightforward.
Right.
Okay, so I move to accept the findings of fact
As amended.
as amended for case, and we want to mention too that there is one condition referenced on page 66, and this is for VAR 24-169. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the findings of fact with a second. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have a motion to grant the requested variance?
Yes. I move that we grant the requested variance with the conditions in the packet as stated on page 66.
And also with the emendations to the findings of fact,
Yep.
for the record. Okay, so we have a motion, and I will second that motion to grant the requested variance for VAR 24-169. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. We've granted your variance request. You're welcome. You will receive written notification 7 to 10 business days from planning. The decision we just rendered is subject to appeal, can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County. And given that, any work that you undertake during the 30-day appeals window, you do at your sole financial risk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next case is, let's see. I'm sorry. Fifth case is CON 24-174. This is for Monarca Taqueria, 236 Walnut Street. Request by Monarca Taqueria for conditional use approval for a restaurant, private club. Use at 236 Walnut Street is required by Section 1331.05 of the city's planning zoning code regarding permitted land uses. City Tax District 11, Second Ward, Tax Map 26A, Parcel 128, in the B4 General Business District. Mr. Yeager, I guess you're up.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So on February 9th, the applicant was issued a change of occupancy permit to operate the taqueria at the restaurant, as a restaurant private wine use at 236 Walnut. There was a typo in the packet that referenced a tavern use, and it was restaurant private wine. And a restaurant private wine is defined or means a restaurant that is licensed to sell beer and wine, but no liquor, and that sells at least $2,500 worth of food each month as stated in the West Virginia State Code. According to Google, Monarca Taqueria is currently open the following hours, Monday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. The images on the left-hand side on the screen show the location on Walnut Street. The image on the right is just showing the storefront. The applicant at the time, I believe, did not have or did not provide a copy of the floor plan drawing. That has since been provided and shown here in terms of what the layout will be of the facility now.
Oh, okay.
And then this is the proposed menu. The menu on the right is the proposed cocktails or margaritas and other spirits that will be offered. And then on the right-hand side is an extensive list of the applicant's menu, and that's also referenced in your packet as well. And that will conclude staff's report.
Thank you very much. Do we have a representative for this case?
I'm Christopher Huff from 105 Treville Avenue, Morgantown. I'm here representing Monarca Taqueria. Really, it's just to be able to get the hard liquor stuff, to be able to do margaritas, micheladas, stuff like that. We have noticed in the past year since we actually opened in February 9th, 2023, towards the end of the year and the beginning of this year, there were two, I guess, competitors that moved in, El Pollon and 1942, Tacos and Tequila. Those both have that hard liquor license, and we have noticed a decent drop off in our sales because, and even a lot of our customers will say is like, you have amazing food, but we would like to see the margaritas, we would like to see the tequila. And so, honestly, from basically customer request, we are putting forth this application for conditional use permit to be able to sell the hard liquor as well. And we're not going to be the bar. We actually literally have a bar beneath us, fourth and goal, and actually our landlord, he's here to help support this. So it's something simple. We want to be able to provide this to our customers. Yes, bring up sales and bring back some customers that have gone over to those other two competitors, just because they do have that.
Okay. Any questions?
Do you have any sense or way to sort of quantify what the drop-off has been?
So we were, all last year, we're anywhere between 30,000 to over 40,000 per month is what we were selling. And then actually towards the end of last year and much of this year, it dropped off. We're actually now floating between 25 and 30,000.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay. So definitely noticeable.
yeah, definitely noticeable. And honestly, the drop-offs have really correlated with the opening of El Pollon and the 1942 Tacos and Tequila. So with those two openings, we even had some customers said that they came over, they bought food from us, and they go over to 1942 and they'll get their margaritas and everything to eat there. And so it's like, it seems kind of obvious, the cost that we get to it.
And do you project that the if you have this, your numbers will come back to where they were?
That is the hope.
Okay.
And obviously, we do still have those two competitors that weren't in there from before. And obviously, the hard liquor does increase sales just naturally from the people that are already coming to us.
Okay.
It's just naturally going to go up at that point, but we could, the hope is to bring some more of those customers that had gone over to the other two competitors back over to us. So I would say it was substantially.
So in the end, it's really about financial solvency?
Yes, really.
Are you anticipating like a change in hours?
Well,
shifting
actually,
to, like, later, or?
I actually talked with a Google rep. They had changed stuff on our page on Google, so those hours are not correct.
Thank you.
But so right now, Monday through Thursday, we are 11 to 9. And then Friday and Saturday, we're open until 2 a.m. online at the bars. And so that way people coming out of the bars can get food and stuff like that. So we stop ourselves at 2 a.m. in the morning. We do not open up on Sundays. That's religious reasons, also just deference for our workers.
Right.
We have considered opening up an hour more maybe during the week, Monday through Thursday, just because 1942 they do open up. They're open up a little bit later, just to kind of get some of those
Or would you
end
shift,
customers.
or for your weeknights, or some of your weeknights, would you shift later?
Yeah, I was just saying,
Just
Monday
to
through
maybe-
Thursday, we might shift till 10 o'clock, 10:30.
In terms of
So, but that would be
Tequila
about it.
margarita service, yeah.
Yeah, but really Friday and Saturday would be our big days. And like I said, we're already open up till 2 o'clock in the morning, so that our times on the weekends wouldn't change.
Can you go to the floor plan?
The floor plan, yeah.
Do you know specifically, not what your occupancy is, but how many seats?
That's 58 right there.
You have 58.
You
Yes.
do have it, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I
it
was
all
concerned about.
Yeah.
The little squares there, that's
Yeah.
a seat, and then the booths will each have 4 per table. So in
And
total, it's 58.
The wording gets a little tricky, but what looks to be where your cash register,
Yeah.
there's counter seating, do you consider that a bar or
Or is that for food service?
food service?
We consider it a bar area. We do service people food. It's just like at any other place like Plaza Azteca.
So-
they have a bar where people sit and they serve food to them there. They'll also serve drinks to them there. And so that would be probably our main area where we would serve drinks.
Okay.
But we would be able
So,
to.
there's a very specific reason why I asked, because the way that these conditional use things go is that the bar seating doesn't count towards your 50.
Yeah, we're looking
Okay.
for 50, to
Outside.
accommodate 50 for food service.
Right.
Well,
So
then it would be 50 outside those 8.
you're,
So,
you're good to
so
go.
we're good.
That's fine.
Because in the initial packet, there wasn't the site plan, or the floor plan.
Yeah.
And
I
it
just
wasn't
had to
clear
do it, so.
in terms of what you're proposing, being able to accommodate 50 patrons exclusively for food service,
Yeah.
as separate from the beverage
Yeah.
service. So thank you for addressing that.
I mean, right now, because we don't have that hard liquor, we do use that our top 4 food service.
Well, right.
So people do sit there.
So that actually answers the question.
Yeah.
Right there. All right. Any other questions? Do you have any other questions? Okay. We may have other questions for you, but thank you. All right. We are going to open the public hearing for this case for conditional 24-174. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case, now is your chance to do so.
Hello, Ray Blimp. I'll use the address 238 Walnut Street. I'm actually the landlord of the building, of the proposed building, other buildings downtown. One, Monarch is a great place to eat food. If you folks haven't been, I encourage you to go there. They operate as a restaurant mainly. The building does have a grandfathered in liquor license. So working along those terms, I think adding liquor, one, gives them a competitive advantage amongst other competition, but it'll also help bring new people to downtown. I think it's something that's necessary. Let's be honest, with tacos without margarita? It only makes sense to further establish them and help build downtown. I mean, I'm working hard for downtown as they are as well, and to have tenants to be able to go downtown and have a drink, I think brings no harm to anyone downtown and will only beautify and better downtown. So hopefully, in accommodations to you guys as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Brooke Bollier, 212 Foothills Lane, Morgantown. I am an employee of Monarca Taqueria. We have had to cut back on our staff because we have not had as many customers come in since the other two establishments have opened. We also have a lot of customers that come in and place an order, and we start making their food, and then they ask for a margarita, and we say we don't have them, and they turn around and cancel their order and leave. So it has been really hard on the establishment as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing. Thank you very much for the comments.
Staff had no additions, corrections, or modifications of the findings of facts presented in the packet. While staff did not provide a recommendation at the time of this report, if the BZA were to approve the applicant's request for conditional use approval to operate a restaurant private club use at this location, staff would suggest the conditions that are listed in your packet. That will conclude staff's report.
Thank you very much. Okay. Here we are.
Mr. President, if I may?
Yes.
The recommendations put forward are consistent with what staff has recommended in previous cases. And number two, where the petitioner submits a floor plan to our office, they have done that. We usually follow that up with a site visit to verify what is on the site plan or the floor plan is consistent and meets the requirement of serving at least 50 people at the establishment. So that we've done that in other cases as well.
That's the point that I was concerned about, meeting that minimum of 50 for the food service. Does the finding of that, I mean, where is it? I guess it would be the fourth finding of fact. Are we comfortable with that wording? This restaurant can only hold about 50 people. That's not inconsistent with the minimum of 50. That doesn't,
But-
it's not in contradiction.
Well, actually, it sort of seems like it is, actually, because
Yeah, it's
the floor plan, inclusive of the bar seating, is 58, correct? Yes, okay, 58. So I think this really needs to say something along the lines that it holds 58 with bar seating, but 50 with just dedicated, that are dedicated to food
For
service.
food service.
Yeah.
Well, that fourth finding of fact is speaking more to just like a fire safety considerations. So I guess I'm just, it's
Well, then just change it, this restaurant can only hold 58 people.
yeah, rather than the about.
Yeah. I mean, you know it's, well, it's not 58 people because your occupancy is higher than that. It's 58 patrons.
Yes.
So you could say that the restaurant
can accommodate 58 patrons for both food and beverage service at any one time. Let's do that. Is that better?
Yeah.
This restaurant can accommodate
58.
58 patrons for both food and beverage service at any one time. Let's do that instead.
Yeah.
And this is documented in the available site plan. And I think the other findings of fact seems pretty straightforward.
I do have a question about the undue congestion of population. This really, it doesn't have anything to do with what they've written. It just looks like that statement of fact was cut off. It just goes, I believe the city wants more foot traffic downtown to break the. There's something else there.
Oh,
Do we
yeah.
have any idea what that?
The is?
Yeah, the.
It might have gotten cut off when I was typing.
Yeah, that happens. I'm just wondering do you remember what your full statement sort of was?
Just basically the city wants to have more foot traffic, want to bring more people downtown, just to kind of make the city a little more, I want to say it's almost like malls now, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
There's
you
more.
want to be make it look better.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So how are we wording it?
You could say, I believe the city wants more foot traffic downtown to increase activities,
Yeah.
or to
Yeah.
or to increase vibrancy.
Yes. How about to increase commercial activity and to enhance
Or to increase commercial activity.
yeah,
and
to
vibrancy.
increase commercial activity and to enhance downtown's appeal.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Let's go with that.
Ready to vote?
So do we have, I move to, any other discussion?
No, go ahead.
I mean, everything else seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, go ahead.
With respect to the other findings of fact, okay? So I'm going to make a motion to accept the findings of fact
As amended.
as amended, as we just amended those specific findings.
A
And this is
second.
for, and we have a second, and just referencing the case number, this is CON 24-174 for Monaco Taqueria. And we have a second. So how do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. We have accepted the findings of fact, and then do we have a motion to grant the
Yeah.
request for this case?
Yeah, I move that we grant the variance on this case contingent on the conditions that were stated in the packet.
Right, and there is one condition, again, or, I'm sorry, 3 conditions referenced on page
78.
78 of the meeting packet. I will second that motion. So we have a motion to grant the requested, the request for CON 24-174. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So we've granted your request for your case. You will receive written notification 7 to 10 business days from planning. The decision we just rendered is subject to appeal or can be appealed in the Circuit Court of Montague County. So any work you do in that 30-day appeals window, you do at your sole financial risk. Thank you very much for coming down this evening, and good luck. with your endeavor. We have, I think we have one last case. Reference, wait a minute. It's the same case number, but let's read them both. So the last case is VAR 24-179 and 180. Doug Groves, 373 Mulberry Street. Request by Doug Groves for variance release from section 1363.02 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding general exceptions to height, bulk, area, and density regulations. City Tax District 15, 4th Ward, Tax Map 7, Parcel 122 in the R1 Single Family Residential District. And then the second part of this is referenced as VAR 24-180 Doug Groves, 373 Mulberry Street. Request by Doug Groves for variance relief from section 1333.07 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding performance standards. City Tax District 15, 4th Ward, Tax Map 7, Parcel 122 in the R1 Single Family Residential District. Mr. Thompson?
The applicant seeks to build a single-family residence at the above referenced location. It will be a 3,341 square foot structure. The building has 2 floors as well as a basement. So that's the kind of look and design of the home. You can see the front load garage in reference there, sticking out from the facade. So that is the kind of site plan of it that shows it from an aerial. The garage is that part on the top, better indicated there, of the kind of bluish purple line is the front of that garage. The reddish orange line is the front, like where the home is, that needs the setback variance. And then that green line in between is showing that that 7.2 feet that I'll reference in a minute is the distance between the front of the home to the setback line, as well as what it would need to be in line with the garage to no longer make it against the need of a front-loading garage being farther forward than the structure. So based on the conditions listed above, the applicant requests the following. Variance relief in the amount of 7.2 feet for the maximum front setback of the single family residence, as well as variance relief in the form of allowing a front-load garage to extend closer to the front lot line than the primary building line of the front facade. And that includes staff report.
Thank you. Do we have a representative for this case?
I'm Doug Groves, the contractor. I wasn't in on, and I am here on the behalf of my client. She's working out of town tonight and was unable to attend. I built a lot of homes in Morgantown. I don't think I've ever been in here getting a variance. My customers have always came in and got them for me, but in this particular case, I'm here for her. So whenever Katie Granville came to me about building this house, she already had this particular plan drawn. And I was unaware of that until Mr. Thompson notified me about the garage is out closer to the street than the door that the front wall is in for the house. That's by 7'2". So my client says that the reason that she designed this house this way, Larry Martin originally started the design on this house, and then he got ill and passed away, and the Mills Group finished this plan. So these plans say Mills Group, but it's really a Larry Martin design. And he was greatly inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright. And Frank Lloyd Wright had a thing about having a front entry set back beyond, because he wanted you to be drawn to the front entry. And another thing that she says is the front door variance is a modified idea of Frank Lloyd Wright's concept of, quote, compression and release, was an architectural term that he coined. Okay, so that is her reasoning for her design, that design. The reason that we are slightly back further is because she's trying to get enough distance in the driveway to put 2 cars back to back so that there's less on-street parking. So as long as it was 2 mid-sized vehicles, we would be able to, she would be able to get 2 cars. You could actually get 4 cars
In the garage?
in the driveway.
Oh, in the driveway?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, as Mr. Thompson informed me, there's really 2 issues here. One is the front door is back 7 foot 1.5 to be exact, further than the garage door wall. The second is our front setback is set by the garage wall, not the front entry
Right.
wall. So.
So do you know what, I'm trying to read it on here, but it's a little bit hard to see. From the property line itself to the front face of the garage, what, do you know that distance?
Yeah, I can dig it up. I believe it was 40 feet from the,
Well, it shows a 40'7", but that appears to be off the property line, unless these property lines are.
The, are you talking about based on from where the garage is to the property line, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
question. It is on the maximum, so it's at 30, it's at the 30 foot exactly, on the one that was submitted.
yes.
So it's 30 feet back from the property line.
Yeah, it's within the 30 foot setback maximum, if they based it off the front of the garage.
Okay.
Yep. And that other blue line, it is kind of hard to see. There's those 2 blue dotted lines. The one that's the closest to the home is the maximum front setback, and the one that's farthest away from the home is the minimum front setback.
Okay.
So they're exactly on the 30-foot mark from their maximum setback. Front garage.
Do we have any sense of what on this street or in the broader neighborhood, what other setbacks are?
They're all roughly within this range of the 30 foot.
Consistent?
Yeah, somewhat consistent.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I was looking at this on Google Earth, and it appears as though that this is not the only garage that in the neighborhood that would be proud of the
Right.
front door.
That is correct.
That
Just, I
there
mean,
are
just
others.
Looking
Yeah,
at the
there are-
lots on the
yeah.
whole.
Yeah, okay.
It's not all of them, but there are, yeah.
There's enough that it's a precedent.
And there's a few new homes on that street as
Yeah.
well as some very old ones too. that-
Yeah, okay. But the size of the house meets all of the other development density requirements and all of that, okay.
In terms of the variance relief request for the front load garage, can you, for the house facade, I understand the compression and the entryway, but would your client consider like shifting the main structure facade forward and have like a recessed entryway? Or would that be something that you wouldn't
I
contemplate? Just
I'll
so,
mention that whenever this all come up, to avoid coming here, and it didn't.
just with
It
regard to
didn't
the,
go- It
it
didn't
didn't
go
go.
over well, yeah, it didn't go over well, because it alters the whole design of the layout of the house.
Because, I mean,
Impact all of that. It would impact the whole design of the
It does impact
For
the
sure.
design, and aesthetics as well as interior, yeah.
because, I mean, I see, with respect to hardship, I see an accommodation, but it's easier to grant that accommodation with respect to, like, functional requirements than it is, like, from an aesthetic considerations. In terms of the second one, in terms of, the variance request regarding the front-load garage and the facade lines. I don't know.
Do you have any idea what the rear setback is proposed to be?
I can look it up.
It's supposed to be,
I was gonna say, I don't have it exactly,
it's
at
only
least in
25.
front of me, but I do know, I'm pretty sure they have a decent amount.
It-
They're not like on, for example, the front is like right on it. I believe you said 30.
because the property's longer than it is wide.
It looks like,
No, the back is,
Is it 25 feet at least? It's
Oh.
probably 30,
it's
No, it's
more than 30.
more than 30.
it literally looks like it might be 60 or 70.
Well, just to the back of the building envelope appears to be like in the 35 range,
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah.
So pushing it back potentially creates a rear setback issue if we say move the whole thing.
We're already back. Yeah,
You'd be increasing the ask then, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
if you push the residents back, the variance request would be even bigger.
True.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I think I have more of an issue with the front load, that, than I do with the 7.2 foot.
What's the, I mean, to address the front load issue, shifting the house to the left or to the right, to make would there be enough space on the site to actually accommodate something other than a front load?
no, because the house currently takes up the entire building envelope in left to right.
Yeah.
Because it is.
So the only-
one narrow.
Only option is a front load.
Yeah, okay.
The
Then,
only
I mean,
option is a front load. The
And that's-
issue is the front door wall, garage wall.
Don't
differential.
line up.
Right.
Don't line up. That's
So, and that's not a self-created,
No.
that's
Because of
working
how
within the
they're-
Yeah.
parameters of the lot. So,
That-
all right, that's
that's
an
the-
excellent question.
That's the hardship, really, for the front load, is that you don't have any other option.
Because you can't shift it laterally.
Unless you wanted to do something really weird.
I mean, it does kind of, in a sense, help with the topography to have that front elevation in that manner,
Yeah.
because the garage is on the left where the topography is the lowest.
Mhm.
You're coming
Yeah.
up to the front door in a sense. I'm just
Yeah.
thinking of reasons to maybe justify it.
So I think for the front load issue, that's a pretty easy question because it is a site hardship. Like, you don't have any other option for any type of garage. That's that.
A front-load garage is allowed. The variance is being asked of it extending closer to the front extending closer to the front lot line than the primary building's line of the front
Oh, being
facade.
proud, that's the issue,
Yes.
is proud, right.
Front load garages are allowed.
Yeah.
But the issue is coming from it not lining up with the
It's
home
not
or being
front.
farther back than the home.
So the garage facade is not flush with the...
Yeah, I get that, okay. Thank you for that clarification.
And then I guess I also see the other reason for the front load is maybe your client has minimum interior square footage requirements.
behind the garage.
Yeah, so you can't, if she's working with that minimum, you can't give up space behind the garage to that interior space.
That's correct.
That's the other reason. And to some extent, that's how you're going to configure the interior space is driven by what's going on with the lot. I mean, you could go, you could shift some of that, the first floor living space back or up over the garage, but then that's going to increase your cost.
There is living space above the back half of the garage.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is shift the garage back so that the facade is flush across the frontage or the front facade. Give up some living space immediately behind the garage and then shift it above the garage. That's what I'm driving at.
It's pretty much a redesign.
Is there any allowance for like a screen wall so that would say there's because I don't think a redesign is necessarily anybody's best interest. But so like in order to sort of comply with the requirement of it being flush, if there was like a screening wall per se that wasn't the actual, it was just the visual front of the house, but the actual like functional exterior wall is kind of behind that.
That's what I was getting at with, like, you make that the front facade of the
And
residence flush, and then you go with a
Yeah.
recessed entryway.
It just sort of, it's keeping the floor plan exactly the same, but it's coming up with some sort of uniquely designed screen wall or something that makes it appear from the street that it's flush. And that's just a question. Would we, if something like that was designed, would that still necessitate this process?
I'd probably have to check the code and just double check it, but I'd probably say no, just because it'd be looked at as like a fence or something. It would have to be attached or in some
Well, that's
way.
what I'm talking about, something that's actually like
kind of like a sunroom, but like not to that degree.
Sort of, yeah.
But I mean, we look at stuff like sunrooms as a part of the
Yeah.
principal structure, but that's kind of, I'm not sure how or to like what degree it would have
It
to
would
be.
have to be physically integrated with the, yeah.
And
Yeah,
that,
it
I mean,
couldn't just be like a fence, like a freestanding fence or something. It would have to like integrate.
and that could, this idea of compression and release, that could be used to enhance that. If there was some sort of way to sort of bring down aesthetically or visually that front entry, and then when you're in it, it gets bigger. But then my other question is, so that's like, the question about the screen wall is a way to sort of mitigate this issue. But then my other question is it really an issue when we consider the other properties? Do you know what the street parking situation is like now? You know, do we have any sense?
I can go pull it up here real quick.
I was going to say also that, I mean, from this drawing, it doesn't look to me like that extra footage, 7.5 feet, is necessarily
To accommodate vehicles.
needed on the garage. I mean, it seems like you could just
That's what I thought,
chop
too.
that off in the front and shove it back.
Yeah.
Because the
You wouldn't
cars,
shove the whole house back?
no, just that 1 7.5 foot section, look at your drawing. There's
Right,
nothing-
because it's, you don't
there's
need
nothing
the
even-
space to
yeah, there's
accommodate the
nothing in there.
vehicles.
There's nothing in there. That is,
It's storage space.
or whatever, or extra walking space, I don't know, put your cot in there.
You
Anyway.
need, inside the garage, you need clearances in front and back. Although it looks like it's not, the reality is that garage is pretty tight. Yeah. And if you cut that straight off with the existing wall, cars wouldn't fit in there.
Yeah, for door clearance too.
And the cars that are shown actually look kind of relatively small. I mean, if you put an SUV in there, it's gonna take up the whole
It's
Right.
currently 23 foot 8 inches inside,
inside. Oh, okay.
That's the depth.
the depth.
Yeah.
So if you took 7'2" off,
Okay.
For municipal parking, what is it?
If you drop.
I think it's 18 foot, isn't it?
Yeah. For a spot?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
the spot,
usually.
it's 18 foot long.
it wouldn't be.
No, I'm just comparing your garage space with the municipal lot.
But in a
Just
municipal,
to
like
give
outdoor
some-
spot, you don't need that clearance in front and back.
Right, it's not the same because it's open air. Right, look at that tab. Oh, wow.
I think it dropped somewhere else when when it opened in a weird way.
Is that the lot?
I do not believe so.
That's Oxford and,
Mm.
It's at the top of the hill of Mulberry. Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep, it's that right there. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. There we go. Sorry about that.
So what you're proposing is basically identical to what's to the right. I mean, aesthetically, it's very different, but functionally,
And a little to the right.
Yeah, shift to the right, Ricky, please, Mr. Shaver.
Yep.
that's a garage, front load garage that's proud,
yep,
and it's literally next door,
right.
correct?
But it does not extend closer to the street than the
Right.
the home. Yeah. Yep.
But is the front door,
Looks like the front door is
To
set
the
back.
right,
but the front door's back,
Let's look at it.
it does
It
look
looks
set back.
blurred.
the front door's back.
Zoom in on it.
The front door's back underneath the blue side of, see it bump out there with the two.
It is, yeah.
It's sort of hard to tell.
It's yeah. It's
But, okay.
Is
It actually
the
looks as
front
if-
wall of the house or the door that the front wall is
the,
in?
so you see how their front porch, like wall, at least from where I'm looking at, and it's kind of hard, to zoom in on it. If you could basically trace the wall where the door is and trace it out, and then it touches the garage door, like wall, then
Yeah.
they're good. That's like the front facade
Yeah, that's-
that we're looking at.
That's
So even if like that door is kind of slightly set in, because that wall kind of curves out a little bit, and then the whole rest of the front of the house is in line with that garage. I mean, that we would look at it maybe differently, but I don't have the exacts of what that looks like.
So, to get,
Why is that a problem? I mean, the door being set back from the, I just can't understand why the city is, that doesn't seem like a structural issue. It seems like a
Again, I can't speak to like in terms of why that was put
relevance.
in place, but you could, if the garage structure its whole self was totally out from the front primary part of
Right.
the building. When you see that happen, usually by code, you will have that front facade be windows as opposed to being the garage doors. So sometimes when you have a really large front-loaded garage in front of the primary structure, it's arranged in such a way where it's not front-loaded. You actually come in and turn into the garage so that it looks like the same decor as the front of the house. So it's not garage doors, but it's actually like windows. And that's in several places, but that's not what the applicant's proposing, and that's the difference of that 7 foot. 7 foot.
You may not be to this point in this project, but is the garage door that's shown here anything, have you chosen a front garage door? No? The reason why I
We
ask-
haven't even got a building permit.
Right,
We submitted for it and then found
Because
this out.
this is showing just a solid garage door, but in reality, aesthetically, it could be a garage door that matches the aesthetic in terms of windows. I mean, you could have a garage door that was all glass. I'm not saying you should, but to get to that point of matching the aesthetic, I suspect that what's shown here isn't what will.
Final product.
Yeah.
You know, selections have, final selections.
Yeah. I mean, what's shown here looks like a Lowe's door, and I'm just guessing that that's not, it's not what's going to happen.
Lowe's door, yeah.
But back to my question about the street. So it looks like the street does not accommodate much on-street parking at all.
They look narrow.
Yeah,
Pretty narrow.
that's just a
They're older, yeah.
a supposition. So, with this proposal, it tries to mitigate
The on-street parking.
the on-street issue, which I think, and they mentioned that in the finding of fact, and I think that's something that is to be commended, and that's a precedent in the rest of the neighborhood too, that there is ample parking for cars off-street.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. We may have more questions for you. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's go, there being no further question, discussion. I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to these cases, VAR 24-179-180, now's your chance to do so. Seeing no one, close the public hearing.
Please see the attached application to review the findings of fact listed, as staff had no comments or modifications. Staff have no objections to the applicant's request for variance relief. If the Board of Zoning Appeals grants the applicant variance relief from Section 1333.04A, Part 2, as well as Section 1333.07B, Part 5 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code, the new principal structure shall be subject to the following conditions listed in your packet.
Thank you. I think the findings of fact are fairly straightforward. I guess in terms of making an accommodation with regard to whatever hardship there is relating to this case, this variance is to allow the homeowner to keep the aesthetics. Again, for me, it's a lot easier to make the accommodation to accommodate hardship insofar as that hardship relates to functional demands of what's being proposed as opposed to the aesthetics.
Right.
I have a question about that, though. In all of that, so there was a,
I mean, form follows function.
there was some alluding to that issue about, it's somewhat of an aesthetic decision. But the information provided in this packet does not mention aesthetic decisions whatsoever. And the provided findings of fact don't address that issue either. So with the information we have here and the findings of fact, it doesn't seem like, because yes, aesthetics will drive a lot of things, but that doesn't seem to be a part of the argument given in the findings of fact.
I just feel, well, okay, with regard to that, I'm more comfortable with the second finding of fact. The front elevation was designed to better accommodate the lot's topography, which is true because of just how the property is configured and what the applicant is looking to achieve in terms of living space and functional garage space and how the two relate and how both of those relate to how the property is configured. I'm much more comfortable with that wording. The front elevation was designed to better accommodate the lot's topography, and the design allows a more effective use, or it's just a more reasonable accommodation in terms of what the lot topography is driving, as opposed to just like the aesthetics of, this is my concept for my residents. I don't know, I'm just not as comfortable with the aesthetic. So would you like to maybe propose a rewording of the, I mean, the variance is to, this variance, I don't want to use the word accommodate because we're not accommodating.
So,
I understand why that code is like that.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you went to, let's use a town, let's use okay, the lakeside townhouses, okay, on the Canyon Road.
Right.
The whole entire garage is they're out in the front.
Yeah.
And at the whole depth of the garage is the front wall.
Mhm.
That's why that code
Correct.
reads like this, is to prevent that. That's why it says that.
Right.
the saying is, you buy a garage with a side of house. That's the phrase with
I
that.
understand the code, and I appreciate you guys trying to figure out how to get around that.
Right.
Because this kind of doesn't apply. I mean, it's not really the concept. It's not.
So, the dimensions of the garage and the location are really determined by an interior function.
That's right.
That's correct. Yes.
And so in order to make the interior function, it requires the garage to be pushed forward.
With the topography.
Yeah, in accordance with the topography. And again, that's consistent with other houses in the neighborhood that do the same thing, right? A few of them, yeah.
Yeah, generally.
Yeah, okay.
How about,
What was that saying you said to get with a side?
You buy a garage with a side of house.
I got it correct.
On the first finding of fact, could we say that in reality, this setback, allowing it to accommodate 2 cars front to back, makes the street safer? Potentially safer?
Are you talking about the variance for will not adversely affect public health and
Yes.
reference to the front load garage variance?
Can you say that again, please, Mr. Plyler?
What did I say?
The setback allows it to accommodate,
2 cars front to back, right? 2.
Yeah.
Right. And
I would say,
How
maybe
about-
if you're looking to reword it, I
Yeah.
would suggest looking more at the lot and the topo.
How about the variance?
and no relation to on-street parking? Because this,
That's optimizing it further. That's not a basic requirement. How about we just go with the variances to afford balance between residential living demands and functional demands of garage use within the constraints imposed by lot size and configuration? Because that's what it's really about. It's a balance between the residents and what's required. I mean, if you want a garage, this is how a garage has to function. And then that space is floating within, in the lot size and configuration universe.
Mr. President, can you read that back again? Let's say it one more time, sorry.
Yep. The variance is to afford balance between residential living use and the functional demands of garage use as constrained. Let's do that instead. As constrained by lot size and configuration.
Okay.
That's more grammatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that all right?
Yeah, I thought that's pretty good, yeah.
Okay. So, and I think the other findings of fact, I really like the front elevation was designed to better accommodate the lot's topography, because you want to do X, Y, and Z with your structure,
right,
but you have to do it within the constraints imposed by
The
the lot
topography.
size and configuration. And you're making an effort to do what your client wants to do and make it consistent and compatible with what the neighbors have already done. So, okay. So I move to accept the findings of fact
as amended.
as amended for, now, is there a separate set of findings of fact for 180, the materials?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is
Just
the
to-
findings of fact for 179, and then followed that is for 180.
Okay, so this motion is just for the findings of fact for
180.
180? No, for 179.
In whichever order, as long as they're separate.
So you need 4 votes. Since it was a combined staff report, but you'll need to vote on each.
Right,
variance and
okay.
Findings of fact.
179 is the setback one, 180 is the garage one.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this is what I'm making a motion on relates to 179 for the setback.
Right.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept the findings of fact as amended relating specifically to -179 for the setback consideration.
Yep.
How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So we've granted your variance request for,
Just a finding.
oh, I'm sorry, that's the findings of fact, I'm sorry. So, I'm sorry. Can we make, I guess we need to accept the findings of fact
I'd do
for,
that one and do the variance
and then
request.
do the variance
And
request?
then move to the next one. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so.
So is the variance request for this one?
Yeah, I don't see
96?
it separated
Yeah, I don't
out in
see
the
it. I don't
packet, the
either. I
findings
don't
of
either.
fact.
Yeah, there's two set of findings of fact in the packet.
Yeah, the first one, as you're reading it
99.
in order, is for 179, and then
180.
it'll go into, or, yeah, 179 and then into 180.
Oh, I see it now,
Yep.
okay.
So does that mean that he put the wrong number on
I
that
did,
one?
yeah, okay.
At least for where I wrote my notes, it was in reference to the question for 180. And
Right.
what-
Yeah, so
I
it is
see that
180,
now.
so he needs to just amend your.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a new motion. This is the motion is to accept the findings of fact for 179. And those findings of fact are referenced through page 99.
Okay.
So, actually, let's revisit those findings of fact. Do we have any questions, concerns about those findings of fact up through page 99?
Wait a minute.
I do. So it states, although I think it's a reasonable statement that it will allow for less on-street parking. Based on our discussion, I don't really think that that's the hardship. I think that eliminating a hardship and reasonable use of the land, I think in this situation, really has more to do with the function of the interior of the building.
Right, I agree.
And it will maintain the efficient functioning of the interior, which is also a pertinent, relevant issue. I think that's the heart. If you were to force force them to revisit it, the desired function of the interior of the house wouldn't be the same. It would be likely less.
Right.
Would you like to have that finding of fact amended?
Yes.
To read that? Okay.
And you're looking at page 99?
Say that again?
What page are you on?
99.
99.
just-
So
just
which
verify.
specific finding of fact? Is that
It's
the
the third one.
third one?
Yeah, the unnecessary hardship. And the fourth one too, to accommodate better parking situation for homeowner and guests. I think that, potentially, but I think the more the intent of the zoning is to try to keep things consistent in the neighborhood and providing substantial justice. The fact that this situation already occurs in the neighborhood and not letting them do it is not fair.
That's true.
So I think it needs to be amended somehow to address that issue, is that the proposed design of the house is consistent with the current neighborhood and in terms of setback, garage location. And
And granting them the variance allows a measure of fairness.
yeah.
Do you want to propose language
I think
on that?
sailors.
Mr. Thompson's, I think, coming up with that.
The suggestion would be the design of the home is consistent with other homes in the neighborhood. Simply enough, kind of just stating that.
Yeah.
Would you like to add in something additional to talk about the substantial justice, or is that inferred by it being a part of the question?
So the variance allows, in terms of the consistency across the neighborhood, it allows the property owner not an enhance, but an opportunity to reasonably develop the property.
To answer your question directly, to me, that statement seems to cover sort of both issues.
Yep. All right, so we have we have a new motion to accept the findings of fact specifically for VAR 24-179 with respect to the setback issue. Do we have a second for this new motion to grant the finding of fact for?
A second.
Okay, so we have a new motion or an amended motion
Right, amended.
to make it specific to VAR -179. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're going to revisit the motion to accept the finding of fact bearing on VAR 24-180. And we do want to mention that we have amended the findings of facts, particularly the first one referenced on page 102 of the meeting packet. So we have a motion to accept the findings of fact for VAR-180.
As
Do we have a
amended.
second?
I
We have a
second.
second. How do we vote?
Aye.
So we have accepted the findings of fact for both VAR 24-179 and 180. And can we do a single motion to
Okay.
grant?
I do two separate.
We need two separate motions.
That's
Okay. So I move to grant the variance requested for VAR 24-179 with respect to the setback
With
issue,
any conditions
subject to the conditions
in the packet.
that are referenced on page 96 of the packet. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion to grant VAR-179, subject to the amended language and the conditions set forth in the packet. And we have a second, just to state that. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So we've granted your first variance request. Would someone like to make a motion for the other variance request that we need for -180?
Yeah, I move that we grant the variance for VR 24-180 and also with any conditions as stated in the packet.
Okay, and I will second that motion by Ms. Cook to grant the variance request for VAR 24-180. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye. So, sir, we've granted your requests for the two variances. You will receive written notification from planning 7 to 10 business days. The decision with respect to your two variance requests are subject or can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County. And keep in mind, any work that you undertake during that appeals window, which is 30 days long, you do at your sole financial risk and at your client's sole financial risk. So thank you very much for coming down this evening, and good luck with your Frank Lloyd Wright inspired building project. Excellent. Thank you very much. That was the last case. Do we have announcements from staff?
The only announcement that we have is that I hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving and stay safe with the weather and stuff out there. But other than that, no special announcements.
Mr. Platter and Ms.
Although-
Cook, you haven't, was Sailor at our last meeting? I don't think you've had a chance to.
Yeah.
I've met.
But Ms. Cook, you have.
I did not, yeah.
Yes.
Sailor's our
Sailor
new
Thompson.
zoning administrator.
Welcome aboard.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any case? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, I think the packet's getting better. I think it needs some numbers on the variances so that we can, like, he's addressing, he's saying, well, the one with the adversely effective, I think they still need like a numbering or an A, B, C, D.
On the findings of fact.
On the findings of fact, yes, because
Because it is hard to
it's hard to
follow.
reference, because then you gotta say, well, the one where blah, 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 instead of saying, well, A, B,
Like
or
maybe,
1, 2,
or
3, or 4.
Roman numerals.
Whatever's
like
good.
bullet Point, like
Whatever makes
this
it
is
easy for
definitely
you.
finding of fact number, or maybe doing,
Maybe if it was like referenced
Like
on,
out-
just on
use-
the page. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like on, like.
Yeah, we need some kind of a reference, so we can say, hey, number, blah, 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 or letter, or something. It doesn't
Sure.
matter to me how you reference it, we just need something easier to discuss. And the other thing is, I think these pictures in the packet are too small. I think this page right here, within this brown area, should be at least the whole size of that brown area.
And
They're
s-
hard to read,
and two in Dropbox too. when
and they're
you're
too light.
Trying to
They're
read
hard and
through
they're too
Dropbox.
light, that's right. So they've got to be bigger. I mean, I would make them the page size.
Yeah. And two
They're
for
hard
site
to read.
plans. And for the site plans too. just
Yeah,
so
they're
we
hard
know.
to read, and then, honestly, wait a minute, there was another one I had. Yeah, this one was bad too, but anyway.
Well, though, yeah.
And I think these could be made a little bit bigger too, to be, you know, here, wait a minute, where's the house is right here, okay, so, I mean, can you pull it out a little bit bigger and just blow up maybe that area a little bit better or something?
Like a zoom in, kind
Yeah,
of.
zoom in a little bit and give us a little bit more, because our real concern, not that we don't want to see other topography, that's not my, you know, but I mean, I'm saying, we're getting into minuscule, microscopic.
Right.
You know, if I can't read the information, it's not going to be very helpful to me. It's going to be hard for me to determine the case and what we're talking
Right.
about. And then I have to try to,
And the restaurant cases too.
yeah, and even the
Floor plans.
The floor plans and
Because
stuff are-
when it initially
Right.
came through, and that's just one of those things, but if, that's what I was concerned about, meeting that 50 for food service, and I wasn't seeing that.
Yeah, so when
And
that guy
then-
went up there to the screen, I
Yeah.
appreciated that he went up to the screen, because I cannot, you know, it's not big enough. So that we can see what's going on better, because we're having to, you know, not that they can't go up to the screen, I think that worked better than not knowing what it was. But I just think the pictures definitely need to be bigger so that we can utilize them. That's why I said this is, I mean, I had to get magnifying glass out and kind of look these things over,
So
but,
that, yeah, so that when the applicant comes up before us.
yeah, they should be
We
like a
can just
page big.
describe what we're seeing, and then give them the opportunity to confirm.
Absolutely. We'll make
Or
improvements. Yep.
I used
to
to,
expand upon.
when I used to do a lot of stuff like this.
Suggest, I'm listening,
For
'cause
drawings and pictures, I would include an 11 by 17 this way,
Yeah.
and you can fold that.
Yep.
You can tri-fold that so that it fits, but when we want to see the drawing, it
Although,
pulls right out. And
I don't-
it's,
maybe that's more, too expensive.
I think that's a little, not that we couldn't do that,
Production standpoint.
but I think even getting it you know.
well,
page-
right, I'm just saying that's one way that I've done a similar thing in the past.
Yeah, no, we've seen, yeah, that one's kind of small too. I mean, I'm just saying we need, not all this, we need bigger pictures, but particularly the things where
It helps you guys be able to make decisions. We
it
can,
does.
we'll-
Be able
we'll
to
get
read
that.
it.
Yep.
It's hard to read it, especially if it's in like a light pen writing. I'm not picking, you
Yeah.
know, hopefully we can help each other. I'm
A
not-
potential
I want it
option
to
with
be a
that
win-win.
too would be like maybe we try to get like one per page, and then the ones that are more like fitted to be sideways, we could just rotate them. If that's okay with you guys, that you just have to like turn your paper or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's
to like look at
fine
it.
with me,
That's not-
yeah.
I think
I'm
that
not-
would
that's
be a
what I'm saying.
relatively.
I'm not trying to make your job hard. I'm trying to help us both.
Because that
work
lets it
together.
blow it up and you
Es-
can see it.
Especially when we're trying to do our due diligence to prepare, because it's
Yeah.
in
It's
Dropbox or in email attachments, it's how it's configured and formatted, it will,
Well, some pictures are easy to see, like
Some are.
these pictures right here, I didn't think were that hard to see. I think sometimes the color of them, you know? But, I mean, not that they couldn't be a little bit bigger, but I'm just saying they weren't as hard as some other pictures. Those other, with the writing on there, had the light writing, and I was like,
Right.
oh my God.
yeah, the hand, yeah.
It was like in a pen.
Thank you for the findings of fact, they're not that it's text and not
Yeah, I mean, that's what I
handwritten
said.
submittals.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
That's
pretty
what I said,
key.
I'm not trying to,
Thank you
No,
very
we
much.
appreciate the feedback, for sure.
And it's also usually like at least talking like encouraged for some of the pictures when they're when it's conveyed like, hey, this is going to be at a BZA meeting. There'll be people reviewing it and looking at it. That at least I'll usually suggest like make sure that they're like pretty okay pictures, like because there'll be people who haven't been there looking at it, and I'll continue to reiterate that and just
Yeah.
really kind of hammer home like if you're taking a picture of it and it's not like a submitted file, make sure that the lighting's good and that it can be seen, because especially on like pencil, if they're not using a pen and it's pencil, it's hard to see. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
for sure.
While we're sort of talking about sort of a perfect world,
Are we still in session, though? Do we want to adjourn and have?
I'm sorry.
We can, yeah. So thank you for all of the input.
Yes.
Duly noted, and we will move forward
Thank you.
on the
Absolutely.
comments. Okay, I'm going to move that we adjourn.
I second.
Second, all right. Duly adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.